contract?
The bargain is struck, little bird. Now, let us go show the world who you belong to.
Chapter 5. A Devil's Bargain. And the morning sun filtered through the high, arched windows of Obsidian Manor, casting long, sharp shadows across the dark hardwood floor. Elena stood near the edge of a massive private library, wrapped in a plush, cream-colored cashmere sweater that felt impossibly soft against her skin. The warm bath from the night before had washed away the mud and rain, but it could not erase the dark violet smudges under her eyes, nor the hollow ache in her chest. She smoothed the fabric of her skirt with pale, trembling fingers. Her skin was clean, her hair dried and combed, yet she felt more exposed than ever. Footsteps echoed softly from the grand double doors. Measured, heavy and undeniably commanding, Dominic Rossi stepped into the library. He was dressed in a tailored charcoal suit without a tie, the top two buttons of his crisp white shirt unfastened, revealing a hint of tanned skin. In his right hand, he carried a heavy leather folder, bound with brass clasps. His striking hazel-green eyes swept over her instantly, taking in her refreshed appearance with an unblinking, analytical intensity that made her pulse flutter frantically. "You look less like a ghost today, little bird," Dominic purred, his deep baritone rolling through the silent room like distant thunder. Elena swallowed hard, her throat feeling tight as she gripped the back of a mahogany chair for support. "I feel like a stranger in my own skin." "Good," Dominic said smoothly, stepping toward a large antique desk in the center of the room. He tossed the leather folder onto the polished surface with a dull thud. "The girl who cried in the mud at Vance Manor needs to die. The woman standing before me must be forged into steel." He gestured toward the desk. "Come here." Elena hesitated for a fraction of a second, her heart hammering against her ribs, before forcing her feet forward. The distance between them shrank until she could smell the intoxicating blend of cedarwood, rich tobacco, and silver rain that seemed to follow him everywhere. "What is that?" she asked, her voice raspy, her eyes fixing on the heavy document. "Your ticket to absolute protection," Dominic replied, opening the folder to reveal crisp, thick sheets of parchment covered in elegant legal typography, "and the weapon that will destroy Leo Vance." Elena leaned closer, her cold fingers resting lightly against the mahogany edge of the desk. She scanned the bold headers at the top of the first page. "Assured a contract of exclusive alliance and conjugal assignment." Her eyes widened in shock as she read down the page. Her breath hitched in her throat, the words blurring for a moment under the sudden surge of adrenaline. A marriage contract?" she whispered, her head snapping up to stare at him in sheer disbelief. "You want me to marry you?" "I do not want anything, Elena," Dominic corrected calmly, leaning his broad hip against the desk and crossing his arms over his chest. His posture was relaxed, yet every inch of him radiated an inescapable aura of dominance. "I execute arrangements that yield absolute control. Leo Vance believes you are an insignificant peasant. He believes he can crush your father without resistance because you have no status. No name and no backing." He leaned down slightly, his lethal hazel eyes boring straight into hers. "A simple employee or mistress can be bought, intimidated, or quietly eliminated," Dominic continued, his voice dropping into a thrilling, gravelly whisper. "But the wife of Dominic Rossi, the Dawn's Queen? If Leo Vance so much as breathes in your direction without my permission, it becomes a declaration of war against my entire empire. Marriage is—" Elena stumbled backward, her hand flying to her chest, feeling the wild, erratic thumping of her heart. "Marriage is supposed to be about love. I just escaped a man who used me and threw me away. How can you ask me to sign my life over to a man I barely know?" A sharp, cruel smirk touched Dominic's sculpted lips. "Love?" he mused softly, the word dripping with dark, cynical amusement. He straightened up and took 2 deliberate steps toward her. The space between them evaporated. "Look where love left you, little bird." Kneeling in the dirt, bleeding on the gravel, discarded like trash by a boy who traded your devotion for a corporate title. The sharp truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. Elena flinched, fresh, hot tears welling up in her eyes, stinging her eyelids. She squeezed her fists tight, her short nails biting painfully into her palms to keep from sobbing aloud. I do not love you. Elena, I feel absolutely nothing when I look at you. Leo's cold, mocking voice replayed in her head. Burning through her thoughts like acid, Dominic watched the sorrow wash over her face, his gaze tracking the single tear that slipped down her pale cheek. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his right hand. His warm, leather-gloved thumb brushed gently against her skin, catching the tear before it could drop. The contrast between his lethal reputation and the careful softness of his touch sent a violent shiver down her spine. Do not waste your tears on his memory, Dominic growled softly, his thumb lingering against her jawline, tilting her chin up so she was forced to look directly into his fierce, glowing eyes. This contract is not a romantic fairy tale, Elena. It is a devil's bargain. I offer you my name, my fortune, and my armies. In return, I demand your absolute loyalty. And if I refuse? Elena asked, her voice trembling, though she already knew the answer in her soul. What happens if I walk away right now? Dominic didn't flinch. His expression remained ice-cold, an unreadable mask of absolute power. Then you walk out those doors as a nobody, he said plainly, his baritone slicing through the quiet room. You go back to a world where the Vance family owns the judges, the police, and the press. You try to protect your fragile, sick father with empty hands while Leo Vance sits in his penthouse, laughing at how easily he erased you. He lowered his hand from her face, turning his back to walk over to the window, staring out at the expansive, foggy estate. I do not force anyone into my inner circle, Elena, Dominic added coldly. The choice is yours. Stay a victim, or become a predator. Silence descended upon the library, suffocating and thick with tension. Elena stared at the thick parchment lying on the desk. She thought of her father lying in a hospital bed, terrified and broken by false accusations. She thought of Leo Vance adjusting his silver cufflinks, looking down at her with pure disgust as his mother called her trash. The sorrow in her chest began to shift, solidifying into a cold, unbreakable stone of vengeance. Slowly, Elena stepped back to the desk. She reached out with pale, trembling fingers and picked up the heavy silver fountain pen resting beside the folder. The metal felt ice-cold against her skin, heavy with the weight of her impending fate. If I sign this, Elena said softly, her voice no longer shaking, her dark eyes flashing with a newborn fire. You promise me he will pay? You promise Leo Vance will watch his world fall apart? Dominic turned back to face her. A slow, predatory smile spread across his handsome face, a look of pure, dark triumphs. I promise you, my queen, Dominic purred, stepping back toward her until his tall frame shadowed her completely. He will kneel at your feet and bleed for every tear you ever shed. Elena unlined her jaw, pressed the nib of the pen onto the crisp white paper, and signed her name in flowing, decisive ink, Elena Vance. No, Elena. As she placed the pen down, Dominic reached over, his large, warm hand closing firmly over hers. He pulled her slightly closer, his breath hot against her cheek as he whispered into her ear, The bargain is struck, little bird. Now, let us go show the world who you belong to. That's the end of this chapter. The next chapter is coming very soon. Smash that subscribe button right now and drop a comment below so you won't miss the thrilling next plot twist. See you in the next chapter.